I didn't know we were going to get straight into it like this, but like I said, there was so much power, and this whole thing is about consistency. And I'll tell you this, like leading up to the Goggins Challenge, all of last year, I know we're going to talk about running, and running is mainly my thing, right? Mm-hmm. But I hadn't run like consistently ever until the pandemic. And so really I had, when 2020 hit, it was at the beginning of the year that I was actually thinking, I was about to turn 35, and I was literally having that whole new decade, new me. And I don't care how cliche it was. That was that kind of turning point. I was like, you know what? For the last 5-6 years, I had this, lose 10 pounds, do this. And I kept putting that on my New Year's resolutions list. And I got sick of lying to myself. I was like, how many more years am I going to write this down before I actually do something about it?
Yeah.
And so 2020 hit. And it started out with super, super small changes to my routine. And it was like, I was working in an office building that had 4 stories. And a lot of my coworkers would take the elevator. Really? We're taking the elevator, 2 or 3 flights. I couldn't stand that.
Yeah.
But I did it. That's what everybody was doing. And so at the beginning of the year, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take the stairs. And I had this little thought of, don't take an elevator at all in my building. And so I started doing the stairs, working a little bit of cardio, started doing the stairs between meetings. Then I'd go do the stairs on my lunch. One day I was like, I wonder if I could do 100 flights of stairs in a day. And it was kind of funny because I'm doing them in these like, 4 flight sets and different stuff like that. And I'm working in a corporate office building. Like people are probably, what is this guy doing?
What's wrong with this net?
Yeah, he's just sweaty all the time. What's he doing?
Yeah.
But so that was the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Fast forward a couple months, I'm down in Arizona, and my brother-in-law went for a run, and I think it was 4 miles. And I remember at the time thinking, 4 miles? You ran 4 miles? Man, that sounds hard. I wonder if I could run 4 miles. And I went out for a run, and that was my first run, February 2020. I think I put in like 2 miles. Didn't feel good.
No?
I didn't have very good shoes. I didn't do anything, and I got home from the lovely Arizona, February, back to Minnesota, and it's cold. It's cold. It's nasty. I didn't really think too much of it, and then I was like, you know what? This running thing, I wonder how far I could run. And I started running, and I ran, I think I was at 3 miles when I said, I don't even know, like, I didn't know what runners called like 5Ks. I didn't even know what that is.
Yeah, I know what it is.
So I've got my my AirPods in or my headphones in, and I said, Siri, how far is a 5K?
Yeah.
3.1 miles. And I was like, oh, I was almost there. I was feeling all right. I was still far away from my house. So I was like, how far is 10K? You just double that. I could have just doubled that. But I ran 6 miles.
It's like one of your first runs?
First runs. And everything hurt. When I got back, my legs like locked up on me, and I was like, what am I thinking? But something really shifted when I was like, okay, I'm not a runner, and I just did that. What's next? And that's when it all started, and just really started to domino for me, because I'm sure it's this way for people working out in general, but especially for running, the addition of a mile, the subtraction of a little bit of your pace, you carve 10 seconds off a mile time. That was a sense of pride that I hadn't had for a very long time. And
I can see why. I can see it.
Those little kind of tweaks that I was making, I was like, okay, I'm digging this. And so the pandemic hit. I started working from home, and I no longer had to make my 20-minute commute. I'm huge into audiobooks and I was big into podcasts and stuff. And so I was like, all right, if I don't have to drive anymore, what if I just start running?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's kind of like Forrest Gump in it, man. I just started running, and when it was all work from home, I just started running a ton by myself. And there was so much, just that little progression, and that's what the consistency is really all about.
Yeah.
I mean, I started learning all these lessons by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But what was wild about it is I didn't have anybody teaching me. I didn't have any organized races. I would just run. I would see what hurt. I would figure something out.
Yeah.
I might YouTube something like how to breathe better when you're running.
Yeah.
And I would learn these lessons. And when I learned that lesson, I would just put it into practice. And so it really, really progressed from there. And I started running farther and farther, a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, making these posts, and we'll talk a little bit more about Instagram and stuff like that. But if you kind of scroll back, one of the things that I do love about social media, there's a lot of things that I hate, but one of the things that I love is the ability to kind of get your own timeline, right? And roll it back. And you look to some of those early ones, I'm like, I just ran 10 miles for the first time ever. I just ran 10 miles sub 10 minutes. I wonder if I could I just ran my first half marathon. And, these are huge accomplishments. And every time I did it, I was like, all right. Yeah, what's next?
Yeah.
What's next? And the burning question always was, if I can do that, what else am I capable of? If I did that, what else am I capable of?
Yeah.
And so starting running in 2020, a couple years ago, for some odd reason, I had wrote bucket list item, run a marathon. I was convinced I was going to go couch to marathon in 1 year. And on November 1st of 2020, which was the day after Halloween, I got little kids, man. What was I thinking the day after? Candy binge.
Yeah, candy.
And the day after was actually the daylight savings time was that morning.
All the things.
And I was on this mission that I was going to run a marathon. And so I actually had a single buddy of mine that was willing to run a half marathon. And so the whole thought was I was going to start off super early in the morning, Minnesota, November 1st. I think it was 27 degrees and windy. I had my headlight on. I took off. I was feeling good. And the whole thought was I was going to run this loop that I knew that was my kind of half marathon loop around my house. And then I was going to meet my buddy who was going to run the second half with me. And it was a pretty special time because I finished up the half and I met up with him. He was like, how you feeling? I was like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling good. And we took off. And once again, when it comes to running, a big part of running with somebody, especially if you're going to do something like this, is that you have a kind of similar pace or running style. Yeah. And I had known that he was pretty consistently running like 9.5 minute miles. Okay. And I was like, I feel like the second half of this marathon, that'll be good to have a pacer, because I was kind of shooting for the 4 hours. I was like, that would be crazy.
I haven't done one
miles.
Yet.
Next year.
Why not?
But yeah, we took off, and I just remember I had a main thought of like, don't look down. I wear an Apple Watch to track my runs. And I just remember thinking, like, there was a lot of times previous to the marathon that I would like obsess about, like, all right, it vibrates every mile. Like, what am I at? Yeah. And I wanted to make sure that, especially for this marathon, that I didn't look down unless I needed to. Like, like, don't check it at mile 16. Don't check it at mile 17, mile 18. Like, don't look down. I had this thought that it would kind of haunt me. And so I started running with that buddy, and I just remember he looked over at me. He was like, "You're running fast." And I looked down. I looked down and we had ran a mile that was like 8:15 or 8:30, and that was like mile 15 or 16. And I was like, oh dang, all right. And I actually had a second that I was like, all right, I'll slow it down for him.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I'm not slowing down.
No?
He can push it. He can push it. He can push it.
Mhm.
And so we were running, and at 25 miles, I looked down, and I believe I saw 3 hours and 51 minutes. So marathon's 26.2.
Mhm.
Moral of that story is, when I was in a world of hurt, my legs were burning. Before the marathon, I never ran more than 20 miles. 20 miles was my max distance. We could talk all about mile 22, 23 when I was cramping up, like, oh, why? And I looked over at that buddy, and he just kept me on track. But when I looked down at 25 miles and saw that I was at 3 hours and 51 minutes, I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And something took me over, man. And I was running. I was cussing at myself. I was like, you're not going to do this again. You got to break that 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I had kind of like visualized it all that night before. And I crossed that finish line, man, this was a marathon that I designed myself around my neighborhood. And I was running around the block. My kids were outside, and I had actually like not timed it perfectly. So I had to run past them and then run a block and then come back. And when I saw that I had done that under 4 hours, that was like what I had visualized. Whew, it was something special. It was wild.
Man.